そういうの今のやつずだ。
And we are the ArtKids. In this channel, we do comics, card games, and don't forget art. So today we're gonna be drawing one of our toys. I'm gonna be drawing this guy, and I'm gonna be drawing this guy from Toy Story. And let's see. So fast forward. My drawing, and because he is doing more details, and so the camera is all his. Bye. Okay, we are done with our drawings, so now we're gonna get coloring with these bad boys. Yeah. These are the same ones that we used in the first episode of ArtKids. Yeah. So fast forward. Drawing now, it's her. It's all hers. All right, we're back. We were done with our drawings, but I got some colors mixed up because I couldn't find the right lavender color, so I just did pink, and his looks pretty good. So let's show our picture compared to my thing. I think I did pretty good. Oh. And here's my brother's. Oh. That's his, and compared it to his thing. Yeah, I think we did a really good job. I put lipstick on. Yeah, I put lipstick and eyelashes on there. Oh yeah, so it's a girl. that's the end of the video. And we'll see you next time on ArtKids!
Wow, my grandma would have called them living dolls. That's Natalia and Rodney Mananog Jr. They're art kids here, and we're certainly thrilled to have them on the platform. You're going to get to see a little bit more of them a little bit later in the evening. Hi, my name is Michael P. Coleman. I'm your host tonight, and I want to thank you for taking some time out to join us for this third in a series this spring of SAC Collab webinars. We're being brought to you by way of a really great innovative partnership between the Center at Sierra Health Foundation and the County of Sacramento. They've come together to bring you critical information in relation to COVID-19, the pandemic, as it relates to those communities that are directly and disproportionately impacted by it: African American, Latinx, Asian Pacific Islander, and Native or Indigenous communities. We're happy to bring you this particular webinar, and the topic couldn't be better. The ArtKids certainly set the stage for us. I'm used to saying we've got a great program ahead, but we've already gotten it started by way of the Mananog kids. This one, supporting community youth through care and creativity. So welcome again to this particular webinar. We've done a lot of the heavy lifting for you. Your camera is off, your mic is muted. Those are the two things that I'm always most worried about when I'm doing a webinar, but you don't have to worry about that. Grab a refreshment if you like, sit back and relax and take advantage of the programming, the information that's gonna come your way. Again, your mics and cameras are muted, but the chat function is quite active. So feel free to use that if you've got questions or comments that you'd like to post. We have a chat moderator who'll be taking a look at that throughout the evening and posting responses. We're also going to put some websites there and some resources for you as we go along. So take advantage of that chat function if you would. First up, let's get, or second, I should say, after ArtKids, let's get right into one of the first of our two presenters. We got a performer at the end of the webinar as well, but let's get to that first speaker. I'm going to introduce to you Iman Saymeh. Iman is a associate clinical social worker who provides a range of social work services and treatment plans through individual, couples, and group therapy. Iman has served in the educational field as a public and private school teacher and as a school principal for the last 15 years, utilizing her master's degree in instructional leadership and education. Iman currently serves as a part-time mental health therapist at hearyou.org. Hello, Iman, and welcome to this SAC Collab webinar.
Hello, hello. It's nice to see you and everyone who's joined us. And I hope our
Really,
time is beneficial tonight together.
I certainly hope so. You know, I should share, Iman and I had a fascinating conversation this morning that had nothing to do with this particular webinar. So
I wasn't going to say anything.
I had to say it. She gave me a call and we were supposed to be talking about tonight, and my mind was in a different place. So I started to talk about a whole different project. And what I learned through that was Iman is a fabulous therapist, I'm sure, because she's a great listener. She didn't interrupt me and say, Mike, what are you talking about? She listened to every word I said, and she signed on for that additional project. So I can speak very highly about, you did. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm calling it right now. You're going to help us with that other project as well. But a couple of questions as we get started tonight, Iman. Tell me about, we're talking about youth tonight. Why,
Yes.
it's clear to me you've devoted your life. You've been a teacher and a principal for so many years. Why youth?
Yes.
Why is that population so very important to you?
Very good question to start with. As a teacher, I felt that I was limited in supporting those families who would have challenges with their children. It could be behavioral challenges, mental health challenges. And later on, moving up as an administrator, as a principal, of course, that by itself is a little bit of a political, position in the school where you are restricted by certain rules and regulations, not to talk about mental health and pursuing therapy and all of that. So I wanted to pursue a second master's in the mental health field because I felt these kids who constantly get in trouble would fall under mainly three categories. It's either we had family disputes that nobody wants to talk about, especially when I served in private schools where parents just want to pay the money and, take care of my kids. And the second category, it would be mental health issues and illnesses that are not treated and not diagnosed and not paid attention to due to many factors. lack of knowledge, stigma, lack of resources. And the third category I just felt the parenting style was not a match with the kid, and the parents needed just awareness and training. So I hope that will be provided through the mental health field.
I thank you for that thoughtful answer. It gives us a better picture for who you are, Iman. I want to ask you, and I should have said at the top, this particular topic, I remember a song, I don't know if you're old enough to remember it, but there was a great song that began, I believe the children are our future. And as much as I love that song, I never liked that beginning, because I've always felt the children are today, they are now. We saw with the ArtKids, children and youth are doing great things right now.
Yes.
So why don't you talk about a little bit that connection, and I'll just turn things over to you. I could imagine with the COVID-19 pandemic, I know how stressful and emotional that's been for me, and I've got a couple generations between me and youth now. I can't imagine how hard that is for our children. I say every day, I'm glad I'm not raising children in the middle of this. So we're so thankful to you to bring your expertise and knowledge to us. Why don't you just have at it and help us learn how we can support our children through this, not completely unprecedented, but unprecedented in our lifetime pandemic.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So the pandemic came to each and every one of us equally, but uniquely. So we all globally have experienced the pandemic, but it came to us uniquely. However, it resonated with us. It's either made us look within at things that gets to shift, things that gets to enhance, or things that we were ignoring for so long. But it sure did bring out so many emotions that we were not ready for. And I want to acknowledge those who are listening today, and they have lost loved ones due to the pandemic. This talk can be triggering and can be upsetting. And my heart goes out to you for losing your loved one due to this pandemic and this unexpected loss that we have experienced throughout different communities. And we're hearing about people's, different lifestyle shifts. It could be financially, it could be that they had to relocate, they lost jobs. Now kids are at home more often, more mental illnesses are on the rise. So everyone is dealing with this results of this pandemic differently. So tonight I want to highlight how our kids, our youth have been affected. And some of them, they had to stay at home. In some district, it was mandatory for the kids to come back to school. And that by itself can instigate anxiety within the kids, within the family. And the pandemic has presented many challenges for students and educators and parents. Children already coping with mental health conditions have been especially vulnerable to the changes. And now we are learning about broad impact of students as a result of school opening and school closing and, being online and being quarantined and not seeing friends and can't, some students, they missed out on graduations and being on sports team. So many changes, it's almost like overnight. And everyone is expected to cope. And I just want to validate everyone's experience because we all are experiencing something brand new. It has pros and cons, and the pros of it, when we go through new stresses, our brain develops new solutions. So we actually are mentally growing, but in the same time, we are challenged with however we are feeling and coping with it emotionally and mentally and spiritually. Mental health issues are the leading reasons for academic success, and mental illnesses can affect students' motivation. And that's what we mainly hear that the parents and the teachers are complaining about, their concentration and social interactions, crucial factors for students to succeed in the education field. But before we talk about the kids, because sometimes we as adults, as we are navigating through so much, we just expect the kids to just follow. And I just want us to take 2 steps back and ask yourself, as you are reflecting how you have been showing up in this pandemic for the last 2 years, how often have you felt upset about something that happened unexpectedly? How often have you felt that you were unable to control the important things in your life, your job, finances, health? How often have you felt nervous, stressed, depressed? How often have you dealt with irritating life issues and hassles that came up for you? And how have you found yourself coping with everything around you? So now, as you are reflecting, imagine the kids who don't have the emotional skill sets, don't have the communication skill sets, and their body and brain is still growing. So what is really happening? There's lack of structure that can absolutely make them feel not motivated. Some students learn better when, at their own pace. So when you put them in front of the, computer all day long, they might lose that concentration, lose that ability to succeed. Slow communications between students and teachers because now there's a barrier. Students struggle to define boundaries between school and home. The structure is off, the routine is off, the schedule is off, and everything is, everything's anytime. Really, even though the school time is from, let's say, from 7:30 to 3:30, but they're in their pajamas most of the time. They're doing it from, from their bed. Their computer and iPad is in their bedroom. So there is no boundaries. There is no, this is school and this is home. So when you don't have boundaries between those two areas, there is no rejuvenation. There is no an opportunity to take a break. Everything sounds the same, and there is no defined line between the two. Students feel like their workload has increased. The teachers are also trying to cope with it. Parents are trying to cope with it, and they just want to keep the kids busy because the parents are finding themselves also working from home. And the kids are having, limited amount of paperwork and homework. So the teachers have increased their paperwork and their schoolwork to keep them busy. Some students don't have access to reliable technology, even though we're grateful to some districts who are providing that. But still, sometimes when they're at home, their internet connection is not the best. Perhaps they don't have the know-how of how to use those gadgets. And students miss the extracurricular aspect of school, sports, band, art, like we're going to see tonight, the art class, even though some teachers are doing it over Zoom, but it's not the same when you're there in person interaction. So we really are helping kids adapt to this new normal when we as adults are trying to find this new normal. And every student has a different way to respond to trauma. Just like us adults, we have different way to cope with different events that we are going through. It is not advisable to require the same response from everyone, especially if I'm speaking to teachers, I'm speaking to parents. Every kid is different. Every kid's resiliency level is different. So don't expect all the kids to just follow just because this one is able to do it and the other one is not, and they're struggling. Treat people differently and meet people where they're at and realize that everybody will find their new normal. They just need guidance and patience. Listen to their stories, listen to what they're saying, listen to their emotions and feelings and their struggles. What are some signs you want to look for? Concerns of one's own health and the health of the family. As we talk about, the pandemic and people are dying and people are being vaccinated and people are going back to work. All these conversations that adults have, the kids are listening. And especially if we have the news on, the kids are listening. And if they're not given the chance to process, we don't have family meetings, or within the school, the teachers are not gathering the kids over Zoom meeting and really processing their feelings, they will not know what to do with it. It will start showing up as anxiety. It will start showing up as depression because there is no outlet to it. They have the information, the input is coming in, but really there is no way to process and categorize and reassure and let them, be heard and be seen fully. You might find disruption in sleep patterns within the kids. I'm not sleepy, or I'm sleepy too, I'm too sleepy. When they start talking about their sleep patterns, monitor it and pay attention to that. The increased social isolation, especially the kids who have the option to go back to school. If they say, oh, I don't want to go, I don't feel like going, my friends are not going, I don't want to be in class by myself. Just also, these are signs to look forward to listen to. Concerns about academic performance. Some kids are not thriving online, and all of a sudden they were A students and now they're failing their classes. And we cannot have, as educators, as parents, as people who are guiding them, the same reaction we had before the pandemic. We really need to see what happened to an A student that went from A to my student who went from A to now they're failing their classes. These are signs to look for. Disturbance in eating patterns. Maybe they're eating too much, they're eating too little. That is something to look for as well. Change in living environment. Maybe they become chaotic and messy in their room. I mean, teenagers usually are. But watch for changes, watch for shifts, mood swings, watch for attitude shifts. Even though they're home and they're growing and their body's growing, and that just naturally happens sometimes. But sometimes when they're at home for so long and they're not seeing friends, they don't go outside, the routine is messed up, and their sleep patterns is not intact like it was before, you will start seeing them falling. It's almost like they're falling apart, but they don't know how to name it. They don't know how to put their finger on it. Depressive thoughts, I feel depressed, I feel down, I feel lonely, I miss my friends. If they keep repeating these statements, watch out for these statements. The pandemic continues to limit our lives. One thing we need to be alert for is depression. And children as well can be diagnosed with depression. Feeling down is in this time cancels activities, social distancing, avoidable, they want to avoid friends and activities. And most of us are struggling with staying positive. As much as we want to be positive and we want to have a positive mindset, sometimes we can't. Sometimes our emotions and depressive thoughts, they overtake our thinking and we become a bit down. And the same thing happens with the kids. Depression is a disorder that most often begins with adolescent, but it can occur in children as young as preschool age, depending on the environment, their living arrangement. Kids who have history of depression are particularly at risk during this stressful time. But upsetting events like the pandemic can also trigger depression in children who haven't shown any signs of it previously. Sometimes you would hear parents say, oh, we don't have depression in our family. Oh no, this is not something that is in our family. It could be hereditary and it could be situational. So we need to really be watching for these signs. These are 3 different steps that the parents or the caregivers, the teachers can be, looking for to guard against depression. Like I said, know the symptoms, know what you're looking for. Change in attitude, in sleep patterns, in eating patterns. These are different symptoms that you would look for. The second thing, teach your children to identify emotions and feeling. Some kids don't, like I said, they don't know how to name it, so they won't know how to express it. So it comes out as, maybe they're overacting, or they want to be alone, or they want to be on their phone, or they just want to sleep all day. So really have them learn the skill of articulating their feelings and their emotions and expressing them, and help them process it. Help them to sit in as a family meeting and help them process it. And it takes vulnerability on the adult side as well to really bring their own feelings to the table. Be mindful to what you're going to be sharing in the presence of kids. You're not going to share about finance and all of that, but really talk. I feel down sometimes. I feel, I miss my office. I miss going to work. I miss seeing my colleagues. I completely get what you're talking about. Like, make them feel that you also are going through it and they're not by themselves in a bubble. The third step is take the steps to engage your depressed kids. Be active with them. Engage in exercise, be supportive, and tolerate the uncertainty. when they come and express something that you feel that you just want to put a band-aid on it. As parents, usually we just want our kids to be, we just want to make sure that they're okay. So we just automatically put like a positive band-aid. Listen to them. Listen to what they're bringing to you. Even if you don't know what to tell them, holding space for someone is healing in its own. Just listening, just being actively listening to someone, having them process what's inside, that is by itself is what a person needs sometimes. And that's what we do in therapy. Most of the time, people just want somebody to hold non-judgmental space for them to get all their thoughts out. And then in due time, we help them process it. Make plans, make family goals, focus on gratitude, just help them with their changing environment. So they will learn how to, start feeling comfortable in this new normal. Back to you, Michael, if you have any questions, or would you like me to keep going? I didn't know.
Really? No. I really appreciate all the thoughtful comments. A couple of takeaways for me, Iman. Empathizing, that's not, I don't think the word you use, but I really love that point to let our children know that we're dealing with some of the same things. You said vulnerability, transparency. Sometimes that's really hard because we as adults, we tell ourselves that we know everything, right? We know all the answers. We know how, we are the authority figures. And I think often I learned that in the raising of my own kids. You can really connect by saying, I'm as confused as you are, or I'm as sad as you are, or I'm as hurt as you are. So really powerful presentation. Thank you so much, Iman Saymeh, associate clinical social worker and part-time therapist, a new friend of mine. You're also with HearYou.org. So
absolutely.
want to really thank you for that presentation, Iman. And speaking of HearYou.org, I want to make sure I mention them as a sponsor of this event, along with Mental Health California, of course. HearYou.org is providing free mental health resources to all Sacramento County residents. And it's really a fantastic opportunity that if you're here in Sacramento County, you can avail yourself to. The website's right there, hearyou.org/SacCollab. So check that out and take advantage of that if you would like. Next up, and appreciate your patience, we're trying to keep you on schedule here. Next up, we got to get back to the ArtKids, to Natalia Mananog and Rodney Mananog Jr. They blew it away at the beginning of this thing. And so we had to provide them a little more space. Let's hear from ArtKids one more time.
What's up? What's up? And we are the ArtKids. On this channel we do comics, cards, and don't forget art. Today we're going to be drawing something a little bit different. Instead of getting something like a toy, we are going to draw something with our hands. And you might be like, don't you already do the drawing with your hands? And yes, indeed I do. It's not like I do them with my feet. But we're going to do a drawing with our hands by doing like a little hand turkey or an octopus or a tractor. We don't really know yet. So yeah, fast forward. Okay, I'm done with my drawing, so the camera is all his. Okay, now we're done with our drawings, as you can see. Voila. And now we're going to go on to coloring. And we're going to be using these kind of markers. So yeah, fast forward. Okay, I'm doing my drawings, so now the camera is all his. drawings. So here's how they turned out. This is mine. As you can see, I did an octopus with little fishes around it. And here's my feathers. It's a peacock with a feather, and it has grass over it. I didn't finish the grass. So yeah. Oh. Well, I guess that's the end. We'll see you next time on ArtKids! Oh, and one last thing. Here's a challenge for you. I want you to go grab a piece of paper, get whatever you can to draw with, a pencil, crayon, whatever. Get your hand and draw a picture with your hand. That's the challenge for today. So, that's it. Bye!
I just finished talking about ourselves being the authorities, and boy, but we should turn things over to the kids, I should say. And I don't often say no, I'm not going to do that, but I don't think if I took my hand in a marker it would come out anything like what we just saw. So again, thanks to Natalia Mananog and Rodney Mananog Jr. ArtKids for those wonderful wonderful pair of presentations, I should say. Time for our next speaker. We've got Alyssa Goudge is up next. Alyssa is a registered associate professional clinical counselor and an art therapist with the vision to assist and inspire others and encourage and empower growth. She uses their creative process, resulting artwork, and verbal discussion to create space to integrate the mind, body, and spirit and begin restorative healing through art making. Alyssa serves as an assistant program coordinator with Wellness Together, and she's also a HearU.org counselor working with children, adolescents, and adults. Please help me welcome Alyssa Goudge to the platform.
Thank you so much, Michael. I am extremely excited to be here today. Loved the conversation that the kiddos were having about the creative process itself. And a lot of times we forget that as adults, we can be just as creative, but we kind of lose touch with that side of ourselves as we get a little bit more into that concrete thought process. So I want to challenge you to say, that I do believe that you would be capable of doing something just as fantastic. You might just have to let go of a couple of those walls holding you back.
I'm going to let it go as soon as you get rolling. I'm going to pick up a marker and see what I can do of it. So before we get started, you helped me earlier today differentiate between a therapist who uses art as a part of his or her own practice and a certified trained art therapist. So since I didn't know the distinction, I thought maybe other people tonight might not. So why don't you just briefly differentiate between the two for us?
Yeah, of course. So as an art therapist, we hold a master's degree or PhD in art therapy. And through training and supervision, we require quite a few hours of practice under a specific board certified art therapy supervisor, separate from a licensed mental health clinician. In the training, we utilize the art therapy process and really refine those skills. And so there's a couple different levels of registration instead of licensure that we can achieve. So a provisional art therapist, a registered art therapist, and then a board certified art therapist. So those are people that are trained in utilizing the skill sets, where utilizing art in therapy has a little bit different of a purpose. It doesn't hold that same psychological and psychotherapeutic theory that we are trained in when we go through our programs.
When I think about art, and I'm going to turn things over to you, Alyssa. Thank you for your time and attention, being willing to be a part of this tonight. But I am telling you, I'll challenge you to be kind to me when I show you my artwork. I'm a guy who could put a stick figure in a chair, and in my head, that's Whistler's mother. But it's nothing like we just saw with the children. I don't think I have that gene, but I'm going to step outside that box and give it a try. Talk to the person now that might be like me that says, boy, I never did great with art in school. How can art therapy help someone like me that doesn't necessarily associate with that visual artistic bent?
Uniquely, a lot of times those that aren't as creative or don't really see the value in themselves, we use art therapy to also boost self-esteem and self-confidence. And so anybody that is not familiar with art or maybe some different skills, it's actually kind of more exciting to dive into that and expand your knowledge and your skill set. So all levels are welcome, whether that may be some stick figures or some professional studio art. Anything is welcome to the table. I want to talk a little bit more about what art therapy is and who can utilize art therapy, and then what the benefits are as well. So art therapy helps to enrich the lives of individuals, families, and the community through art making, the creative process, and psychological theory, and combining that with the human experience that we all have in our psychotherapeutic relationship. So a lot of times as art therapists, we use kinesthetic, sensory, perceptual, and symbolic opportunities to connect that expressive communication that might be limited via verbal language. So sometimes we have a really hard time bringing something up or talking about it. Art can be utilized as a tool to bring forth that conversation, or perhaps allow the therapist to read into what might not be able to be verbally processed in the room in the present moment. So through visual and symbolic expression, we help to give voice to experience and help to empower some transformation process. So there's a couple different ways that we can utilize art therapy, and this kind of goes like back into the day of the original creation, if you will, of the founding of art therapy. So we can use art therapy as a psychotherapeutic approach. So that could be utilizing the art and what has been created, and looking at it kind of as an assessment tool, or seeing what was created and then what we can determine from that creative process. So what assumptions as trained art therapists maybe we be able to make and inquire within the client about, based on what the product and the creative process looked like for them. Then we can also use art as therapy. Sometimes just the creative process and making art in itself, maybe that's punching a ball of clay or really rubbing into some paper with your hands, also serves as a form of therapy. And a lot of times as art therapists, we link those two mindsets and modalities together and bring that into the space to help serve the client. I also want to recognize that there's a whole expressive therapy curriculum or continuum, which includes music therapists, expressive arts therapists, dance and movement therapists, play therapists. And so there are multiple different kinds of expressive therapists. However, for my purpose, I am specifically trained in art therapy. Sometimes people get those a little bit confused because we're all kind of creative in one way, shape, or form, but we each have our unique training that we practice and continue to become educated in. So art therapists can serve individuals, couples, and groups, families as well, for any person of any age across a broad spectrum. So this includes diverse populations in a variety of settings. A lot of grad school programs in art therapy actually do some service learning trips, which is pretty cool to learn about, where we travel to countries where English may not be the primary language, and we solely communicate through art. It's a really beautiful experience to see the connections that can be made just through the creative process. And in that, we're also helping the communities and working on a little bit more of that restorative healing and that inner peace. Art therapists can serve in many different places. So I have served in multiple of these myself. This could be a hospital setting. There's a lot of hospital work and work to be done, especially right now within the grieving process and with those as we heal and maybe even see the long-term effects of the ailments that we are all touched by in some way, shape, or form, or know somebody that has been by the COVID-19 pandemic. Schools as well can utilize art therapy as a tool for nonverbal communication or to help encourage that verbal skill set. Veterans clinics are quite fond of using art therapy with work for PTSD affected veterans. Myself, I utilize art therapy in a private practice setting with specific clients who are interested and open to the utilization of art therapy. And psychiatric and rehabilitation facilities often utilize art therapy as well. It's a really great tool for trauma and healing and starting again to begin in that collaborative restorative process. Community clinics and crisis centers also often utilize art therapy as an initial way to build that bond and start to open into the conversation of what may be affecting the person that's in front of you. And lastly, in senior communities, a lot of times when I talk about art therapy, somebody automatically assumes that I work with kids, even more specifically, little kids. One of my absolute favorite placements when I was in art therapy training was in an Alzheimer's unit, and working with those that are still flexible with their mind in ways that maybe aren't verbal. And so seeing a lot of that come up for them through images was a really beautiful and inspiring process. So there's a lot of different benefits of art therapy as well. Art therapy helps to connect the mind, body, and spirit, as Michael had mentioned, utilizing integrative methods, and it's very distinct from verbal articulation. It can help to inspire some verbal articulation, but sometimes we can't even get to that point where we can say what we are showing in our artwork. So there's so many different things as art therapists that we're trained to look for. It could be the pressure in the tool, what materials the client uses, how small or large their image is on a page. And this isn't to scare you off from the utilization of art therapy for yourself, but I just want to acknowledge that there's so many different things that go into the aspects of what we look for as art therapists and what we really have that training and connection and how we use the tools that we've learned to best serve our clients as they sit in front of us and really be present in the moment. One of my favorite things about art therapy is that not only does it support personal and relational treatment goals, but it also helps to improve cognitive and sensory motor functions. You got to think you're using your hands a lot. Art therapy has no limits. So it could be a person that maybe cannot use their hands at all. And so as art therapists, it's our job to find ways to alter the tools to be able to use by somebody's mouth, perhaps for a paintbrush, or maybe somebody's feet, and really adjusting things to be able to make sure that our clients are best served and feel empowered and are able to appreciate the therapeutic art process, which again goes back to fostering some self-esteem and self-awareness and cultivates some emotional resiliency. It promotes some insight into where we're at and also helps us to see each other in a different light. And I'd love to walk you through a brief little how to see each other in just a moment. Art therapy helps to enhance social skills because a lot of times we need to see something to get a conversation going. And we don't have to talk about what's going on with us. We could just say, that's a really nice color of purple. I like that you used that. And starting a small conversation from there. And in restoring our societal and ecological changes, we help to move that process forward through the art making process, resolving some conflicts and addressing the distress levels that we're currently feeling. I spoke briefly to being qualified via a master's level degree or a PhD. As art therapists, we're required to meet ethical standards and scopes of practice by the Credentialing Board of Art Therapy. And a lot of us have and are required to have a minor in studio art, meaning that we are maybe not professionals at all different forms of the art making process, but we do have experience in each and every one of those. Art therapists also commonly hold a behavioral sciences credentials, such as a licensed marriage and family therapist or a licensed professional clinical counselor, also having a PhD at times as well. If you're interested in finding an art therapist, because everybody, needs to know where to look. When you're looking and sorting through, asking questions, if somebody mentions that they utilize art therapy, asking, hey, did you go to school? Do you have a credential in that? Asking them for their credentials is never a bad thing to make sure that you're aware of who you're speaking with and to make sure that they best suit your needs. You can also find an art therapist on arttherapy.org or atcb.org. That'll link you to some providers within your community. However, we have also got a couple art therapists that are serving you all in Sacramento County through the SAC Collab on hearyou.org. And that can be a request if you check us out online there as well. With that, Michael, may I have permission for just one more moment to
Absolutely.
briefly walk through? Anybody can join in with this. All you need is a piece of paper and some form of pencil, marker, crayon, something nearby. It's really important to take time to check in with ourselves. And so in this intervention, it's called Just One Line. I would like you to be invited to join me in this. This is something that is helpful to take a couple deep breaths before. So I'm going to take a moment to just take 3 deep breaths in. And bring your attention to what you're doing, noticing how your body feels and the sounds that are around you and the thoughts that are in your head. You don't need to attempt to ignore your body in any way, silence your environment, or stop your thoughts. Just notice whatever's going on inside or outside. And then I want you to put your pen to that piece of paper and draw a single line, any kind of line that you want, anything that comes naturally to you as you are in the present moment. Don't try to be artistic. This is just a singular line to represent where you're at right now. Maybe that mirrors how you're feeling your heartbeat. Maybe that mirrors how your breath pattern has gone throughout the day. I'm going to give you just a moment to, without any judgment towards yourself, create a line that represents where you are at in the present moment. After you've completed that task, I'm going to ask you a couple different questions. I'd love it if you could title your line or give your line a name. For example, that might be the ups and downs of burnout. If you could use a couple words to describe your line, what might those be? Does it look like a mess? Are you kind of disappointed in it? Is it kind of goofy looking? And what does that line tell you? When you look at it, what kind of message do you get about where you're at right now? If you could identify any themes or values that arose in it, what would you say? So, for example, you might see your current stress level in that piece of paper. If that's what you see in that line, it's really kind of screaming at you and it's there. Maybe that's something that we need to be a little bit more attentive to. I want to ask what that exercise was like for you, and then invite you to draw below what your desired line might look like. If you had your goal line to create, how would that look for you? This is an exercise from Dr. Amy Bakos in the Acceptance and Commitment Art Therapy book that will be coming out soon. And she really focuses on accepting us in the present moment and just checking in with ourselves and where we're at. Something that I think is great to do as a family activity is invite others around us to do this and really compare where our lines are at, and then look throughout the week and see where we have all changed and where we can kind of go back to the normal of what our desired line might be. It's really simple, doesn't require a lot of communication between yourself, family members, whoever you might be working with. And it's a really good way to just check in briefly and see where each of us are at.
Alyssa, I have never had more fun during a webinar. I can safely say that. Incredible, really incredible. Lots of great resources and ideas. I have my line. I don't know if you can see it there, but
yes,
and I'll tell you, and I labeled it all over the place because that's how I'm feeling right now. But I love how you said no judgment. I was worried about saying that, and you said no judgment attached to that at all. So I even felt my mood change the minute I grabbed the crayon and the blank piece of paper, and it was fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yes, of course. I would challenge you to think about how many others' lines may have looked quite similar to yours for those that have participated.
Wow, I wonder. Maybe some people will put that in the chat. I just wonder. I want to thank Alyssa Goudge one more time. She is a art therapist and registered associate professional clinical counselor. Did I get all that right with Wellness Together? Yes. She's also with HearU.org. And again, HearU.org is providing free mental health services to Sacramento County residents. So take advantage of that. Alyssa, thank you so much. And before you guys, yeah, there's the website right there. So jot that down, HearU.org HearU.org/SAC Collab. So look them up. Fantastic partners of ours here at the SAC Collab. I also want to share, I believe in following instructions. I think it was Rodney who said, take your hand and a crayon. It was Natalia. and draw something. So there you are, my art kids, Natalia and Rodney Mananog. So thank you so much. I tapped into the kid in me when I grabbed those crayons. That was great. As we get ready to wrap up and we want to be respectful of your time, I'm going to introduce a brief video to a young man that I got to meet about, I don't know, eight or 9 months ago as a part of a brand new program that you're going to hear about, Brother Be Well. Coon the Poet is a spoken word artist, and I walked away from that first experience with a whole new respect for spoken word. So get ready to have your socks knocked off by Coon the Poet. Check this video out.
But I want to ask you to help me welcome Brother Be Well content contributor and spoken word artist, Coon the Poet, whose creative and positive messages resonate with youth throughout California and beyond. Coon blends personal experiences with creative expression to uplift listeners and viewers. Coon was a featured presenter on the Youth Listening Session Northern California tour with Mental Health California and Kaiser Permanente in January of this year, January of 2020. So help me welcome Coon the Poet.
Scared like a baby lion in the nursery. This is the day of my anniversary of the first time that I had to be rushed to emergency. Yeah, this is the day of my anniversary. Thinking about the bullets hitting my body is hurting me. This is the day of my anniversary, so if I act a little paranoid, y'all just work with me. This is the day of my anniversary, March 1st. Marks the curse, the worst, the first time that I almost nearly marched to the hearse. I'm feeling it hurt. The bullets hitting my body, I'm thinking inside, man, I can't believe that he shot me. I'm running through the house. I started to pause, I look back. I can see my blood hitting the wall. I started to fall. My legs not working at all. My cell phone's ringing. I pick it up and answer the call. Bro, he shot me. Call 911. Then the phone slipped out my hands. My body was turning numb. I prayed to the Lord not to let me go. If it really was my time, you should have let me know. I would have got ready, packed my bags for the journey, or ducked and dodged and avoided the gurney, because this is the reason why I'm twitching my eyes. Or this drama steady bringing me trauma. I'm traumatized. I'm feeling scared like a baby lion in the nursery. This is the day of my anniversary. For the first time, I had to be rushed to emergency. Yeah. This is the day of my anniversary. Thinking about the bullets hitting my body is hurting me. This is the day of my anniversary, so if I act a little paranoid, y'all just work with me. This is the day of my anniversary, so a couple minutes passed. I knew I was gonna die. I closed my eyes and got ready for the other side. I leaned against the wall, accepted my death, took my last breath, turned and looked toward my left, and there he was again with this finger on the trigger. Everything was getting dark. All I'm seeing is a figure. The second bullet's coming. I put my arm up to block it. Even though I'm feeling nothing, I knew I didn't stop it. Inside of me, I'm hearing my pulse. This ain't a joke. Every time my heart beat, blood came out of my throat. I thought it was all she wrote. But I guess she kept writing. Because as soon as I thought I was dying, I heard sirens. I'm feeling scared like a baby lying in the nursery. This is the day of my anniversary. For the first time that I had to be rushed to emergency. This is the day of my anniversary. Thinking about the bullets hitting my body is hurting me. Yeah. This is the day of my anniversary. So if I act a little paranoid, y'all just work with me. This is the day of my anniversary. And so I awake in the hospital, barely alive, barely can see, but still watching my family cry. Can't even speak. So everything I said, I had to write it down. Blood pressure was going up, which means I had to calm it down. I'm laid up with 3 tubes in my chest, 1 in my nose, 1 in my throat, 1 in my neck. I'm feeling stressed. Inside, I'm dropping tears and I'm praying prayers because I know that life after the bullet, well, that's very rare. My mama's close to the bed. I can't hug her. I grab my little cousin's hand and tell her I love her. Look to my brother and I begged him not to take revenge. Look to the Lord and I asked him to forgive me for my sins when the tubes came out. My first word spoken. Grandma, dying is the easy part, but living will leave you broken. But the more pain I was feeling, the more I was healing, and I didn't know it at first, but now the truth is revealing that I was brought on this earth and shot on this earth for a reason. See, I done been through the worst, and I'm still on this earth, and I'm breathing. So whatever else happens, can't be too worse to me than the day, my day, my anniversary. Peace.
Occasionally you cross paths with somebody and you never forget it. I'm glad to be able to count him as a friend as well. Glad to be able to count the number of friends that we've gained tonight. And I want to thank all of our speakers tonight. I want to thank Iman Saymeh and Alyssa Goudge, both of hearyou.org. Of course, our ArtKids, Natalie and Natalia Mananog. Want to thank, of course, Coon the Poet for that final presentation. I want to thank all of our partners, the SAC Collab, again, a partnership of the County of Sacramento and the Center at the Sierra Health Foundation. We need to thank our great, great friends again with hearyou.org. Cannot say it enough. Take advantage of those free mental health services if you need them and you're a Sacramento County resident. We need to thank our partners at Mental Health California. We couldn't do what we do without them as well. Our production team tonight, really quickly, Dwight Brown has produced this event. Elizabeth S. Robert is co-producer and she's been moderating that chat for us. Christine Smith has been serving as an audience member as well. Christine, in her spare time, also happens to be executive director of Mental Health California. I want to invite you, thank you again for spending the day with us as a part of this particular webinar. Mark your calendars for the next in the series. It's coming up Tuesday, May 25th, so mark your calendar for that. And as we used to say in the broadcasting world, stay tuned for more information on that. And in the meantime, my name again, Michael P. Coleman. I've been your host. I want to invite you to please do me two favors, take advantage, do me two favors rather, take good care of yourself. And while you're at it, take good care of somebody else. You take care, and until next time, bye-bye.